Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and I had a little bit of a break because my upstairs neighbour started doing construction without warning everyone. But yeah, we're back. Now, I want to talk today about NORSCA, because we've all heard those rumours that NORSCA might be the next faction in the upcoming DLC, which, if the rumours are true, that would mean it was NORSCA, Slaanesh and High Elves. And to be honest, I'm kind of leaning towards that now, mostly because the more I look at the Dark Elves, the more I can see that there's not really a lot of content unless Games Workshop creates new units. I'm still holding up hope for the Dark Elves, but I do want to see NORSCA improved, and maybe this might be the best time to see that. Now, with that being said, what I do want to do is do a video focusing around what I expect or what I hope for a NORSCA rework. And what we're going to do here is talk about the race as a whole and then individualized by Throgg and also our good buddy Wulfric. So let's jump in and talk about what I want to see improved for NORSCA. Alright, first up, tech tree needs to be reworked. It's pretty obvious that the tech tree for NORSCA is kind of annoying. The fact that everything pops up from one location, then you have to keep expanding upon from that. I don't want to talk about this much because it's very likely that we're going to see it improved. But in short, I'd like to see it in 3 sections. The tribes, the monsters, and then just like maybe the gods, so you can get a few bonuses here and there would be nice. And we'll talk about the gods in just a small while too, because there's a few things I'd like to see improved upon when it comes to dedication. More technologies would definitely be needed, and I think that's not really a bad thing. The idea is just adding a little bit more there, just to make them fall in line with Game 3, because they're still technically a Game 1 faction. Alright, let's talk about dedication. NORSCA should still be able to dedicate to the gods. The problem is that the current system is absolutely boring. There's not really much to it. Like, you can go all the way and, yeah, you'll get an Exalted Great Unclean One. Or maybe a Specialist Chaos Sorcerer of Slaanesh. Maybe you might get a, I don't know, man, a Chaos Champion of Khorne. There's not really much there. The system I kind of like, but not in this interpretation. It should be in a very similar sense to Daniel, but hear me out, because I know some people have PTSD from Daniel now. 5 bars, Undivided, Khorne, Slaanesh, Nurgle, and Tzeentch. You can then pick if you're going to stay Undivided, if you're going to go to one of the gods and just kind of expand from there, right? If you go Undivided, you'll get a lot more buffs towards your generalized NORSCA units. If you go Slaanesh, for example, you'll start to get access to Slaanesh units, but only mortals, no demons. So you'd get a few Chaos Warriors, you'd be able to get a small access to Chosen, and just some dedicated stuff there, right? And what could be done there is, as you improve, if you get specific sections of the bar, which you'd only be able to go down 1, you'd then be able to get skills dedicating for your heroes and your lords. The tech does exist for that, by the way, so it's not that difficult to do. This would mean that, yes, you would get access to some Chaos Warrior units, but you wouldn't be replacing them. If you go Undivided, for example, you'd still be heavily incentivized to get Marauders, Skinwolves, all the like. No demons whatsoever. I don't like the idea of NORSCA having access to demons when they really just worship the demons as gods. There's actual lore that suggests that, where there's like demon princes hiding out in NORSCA, and some of them are just worshipped as demigods, essentially. But yes, dedication should still be a thing for NORSCA. They're a chaos faction. It just shouldn't be as strong as, say, for example, the Warriors of Chaos, who are able to just upgrade their troops, or, you know, get demons. NORSCA should still be Chaos Light, and there should be more incentive to push towards Undivided. Monster hunts, right, these should remain. As you know here, you have to kind of work through your tech, and then you'll be able to, like, spawn for an enemy army. You'll be able to get a bonus from that, which is kind of nice. Sometimes even just unlock a new unit, which is also kind of cool. I would see it improved a little bit, however. It should be its own panel, kind of similar to what Arbal's had. The idea here is there's loads of monsters all over the place, and you're incentivized to go after them to get more bonuses. You wouldn't be able to teleport with them. Maybe Wulfric should be able to, considering that Wulfric can actually teleport with his magic ship, which is never really represented. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but the main thing is making that an evergreen feature. The problem with the monster hunts is that there's 6 pages, right? Those being 2 monster hunts per side, and then you're done. There's no incentive to go after them. There should always be a running mechanic rather than it just disappearing after a while. It's kind of boring when that just disappears. If you keep having monsters appearing, one, they could just be static, so you don't have to go for them if you don't want to, but You're incentivized because you will be getting some cash, maybe recruitment bonuses, all of them on a temporary basis, but it still makes you want to go for them. The great thing about certain mechanics in Warhammer 3 is that they are evergreen, but you can ignore them. Tamokan, for example, you don't have to do all those things to be able to pick up those pseudo-legendary heroes, all those units from other factions, but they do benefit you, so you'll kind of want to go for them. But later on the campaign, if you think, well, I don't need to do this, you don't need to do it. Naturally, the design philosophy from Game 1 to Game 3 has changed drastically. So, yeah, that's why Warhammer 1 didn't have this. That's why they just went, oh, you know, one and done. But now it's very different. People are playing longer campaigns. A lot more people are playing. Give a reason for people to use these mechanics. Construction is generally fine for NORSCA, I would say, especially if we get a new DLC. That would be adding some units. Maybe they'll have to retool some buildings, which kind of makes sense. My only real issue is the lack of walled settlements, which I know some people don't like the walled settlement battles, but they do disincentivize the AI from attacking you sometimes, so it's more of a defensive thing. Walls should be a thing in NORSCA. I don't know what Creative Assembly developer went, oh yeah, you know, there's no walls in NORSCA, but I can point you towards like 3 different books which mentions walls in NORSCA, one of them being Wulfric, because he stands atop of battlements in his own novel where he's having one of his little sad boy things. It's a great book, by the way, I would highly recommend it, but Wulfric is a little bit of a simp. The main thing here is, you know, NORSCA is very dangerous, and the fact that they don't build walls is just kind of silly. It makes sense for the Mountains of Morn, because ogres can't fit in walls, because, you know, the engine doesn't allow for big entities, which is kind of weird. But a race of humans will want to defend themselves. There are a lot of scary things inside of NORSCA. It's not just like skin walls, but Etins, there's just general mutants, loads of chaos spawn. You're telling me that these tribesmen are that stupid? That they won't build up walls to defend themselves? I get that Tariff does some funny memes on NORSCA, they're admittedly very hilarious, but yeah, you know, I think even he would agree, walls are something that would be common sense. We're going to be jumping onto the characters now, but before we start individualizing, they need to look at the faction and lord effects for both. I mean, they have the effects of minor factions, essentially. It's pretty depressing when you see that compared to other races and factions. I'm not sure why this has always been so ignored. You think that they would have improved them at least a little bit when we saw the minor NORSCA updates when it came to the release of Immortal Empires. But yeah, nothing is there. We're going to jump onto the characters properly now. Don't worry, there's timestamps, so yeah. Wulfric. Okay, so first thing is he needs to have shipbuilding. Very much a pseudo-horde. Why? Because he's the Wanderer. He needs to be wandering around. I'd like to see him actually push around and have the incentive of being a sole character, being able to jump into different locations and get into loads of different fights. Plus, it would help a NORSCA faction tremendously if you're able to recruit on the go. You don't have the best units, so sometimes you're going to have to replenish quite quickly. And if you do have a pseudo-horde, you know, being able to recruit from the ship, that does mean that you're going to be able to build up a proper army and not have to rely on NORSCA crap stacks. His start position should really change. I'd like to see him move to Skeggy, mostly because, you know, it's just, there's a lot of NORSCA. There's only 2 characters playable at the moment, but it just feels way too awful to have 2 of them fighting for the same location. Sure, it's great for Confederation, but I just don't see this being too good, right? Move him to Skeggy. We're likely not going to get like a Skeggy faction, so just put them there. They can fight with Mazdamundi, and he can then move from wherever he goes, right? And we'll talk about that in just a second. It's more of the case of diverse start locations are generally quite good. I've played all 3 of them for Nurgle, for example, and the same for Khorne, and it's just nice to have different start positions. It gives you an incentive to play that race once again. This is why the Empire does so well. You've got so many lords in different locations, even though like Gelt can just travel back to the Empire if you so wish. But having characters way too close to each other like Zhao Ming and Miao Yin for Cathay, I'm going to play one and then I'm kind of done with that. I will move on to Yuan Bo. And now for a unique mechanic. Wulfric definitely needs a unique mechanic. The problem is that Arbal the Undefeated has basically taken what Wulfric would have had, teleporting to different locations and fighting challenges, because that's what he does. That's what he literally does in his novel. He's running around challenging people in various different languages, fighting them and just proving himself to be one of the greatest fighters around. The problem is Arbal has taken that from Oxyotl, so that means that we're going to see the interpretation come in for the 3rd time. Maybe even more, actually. What could be done to differentiate it is maybe the more Empire Lords you end up fighting, the more bonuses you get. So again, progress bars, but I feel like progress bars works very well for that, kind of like a tally on how many Empire Lords you've killed, Bretonnian Lords you've killed. only focusing around that. So you get certain bonuses and you'll be pushed towards going for certain things. This might be the best way to go. It's a bit annoying because, like, again, Arbal, every time I saw Arbal, it's like, yeah, that's Wulfric's mechanic. But a copy-paste would just be kind of boring. But if they do copy it and add to it, enhance it, make it quite unique for him, yeah, I won't have too many complaints. The issue is that that's like the main thing in Wulfric's lore, and I'd like to see it represented in-game. Less creative liberties, more actual source material. Alright, Throgg, king of the monsters, but not really, because... yeah... I mean, he needs to have some buildings dedicated for just monsters, so he could have a unique building tree that's going to let him get the trolls at tier 2. Yes, I know they're tier 3 units. Well, actually, they're tier 2 units, but for some reason they're recruited on tier 3. Maybe even putting the generic Chaos Trolls in tier 1. They're not great units, but the idea here is adding some stuff of value so you can focus heavily on monsters. His faction should be mostly monsters, yet, oh yeah, you know, get yourself some Marauders, and more Marauders. There needs to be a building rework specifically for Throgg, just to make him a little bit different. Maybe give him access to some other troll units and monster units that are already available from, like, seriously 3 games that we've had. Give him a different playstyle. Give him just a lot more creatures. There's a lot of creatures that fit very well there. Maybe some common trolls and stuff like that. Make him the troll king he's supposed to be. Alright, his voice. I would love to see it change, but I very much doubt it. I just don't see them recasting someone, which is absolutely atrocious, considering that Throgg is probably one of the most well-articulated characters in the Warhammer Fantasy universe, and yet we have I eat my enemies, which, oh boy. On the plus side, we do have a mod that fixes that. I know mods aren't supposed to be there to fix things like that. It's supposed to be extensions of the game, but... yeah, if Creative Assembly are incapable of recasting for one reason or another, yeah. Now a unique mechanic, because I do believe that Throgg deserves a unique mechanic. I believe that he should have something akin to just like monster kingdom building, right? Where you'll get buildings, kind of like a very similar geomantic web. In a sense, I think that could work out quite well, where you'll take certain settlements with like a monster icon and you'll get faction-wide bonuses. The idea here is to have a certain unique building, kind of like what Wurzag has for all the Savage Orcs, but just for Throgg, and faction bonuses that start accumulating, which will mean that your garbage-ass trolls will start performing better in combat. So you keep wanting to pick up more trolls. In a perfect world, we would see a troll hero and a troll lord, but I very much doubt that that's going to happen. I would love to be proven wrong, however, because a King of the Monsters campaign sounds pretty fun when you start implementing all the big beasties, getting the Mutilith, getting the Slaughter Brute. If we end up getting like the Gigantic Chaos Spawn, the Chimera, and maybe the Cursed Etin, because that would fit very well for NORSCA. All those are big monsters, which would be really cool to see in a monster-centric faction. But when you lose out on a bunch of Marauders, this is why you'd need to have some accumulating buffs. These are just some basic ideas, but I think evergreen features and just some bonuses and actual stuff to do with Throgg and Wulfric will make them a lot better and a lot more fun. One thing that was really good, but kind of stripped down, was Throgg and Greasus. They were taking from other factions, but it did work out quite well, and it could be the case that we will see a stripped-down mechanic for both Wulfric and Throgg also. They're not a deal-breaker as long as they perform well. I'm having a lot of fun with Greasus, and I'm having a lot of fun with Throgg, and it shows that sometimes they don't need to be bombastic additions, but they need to fix up clear issues. I know some people are going to be wondering, well, what happened to all this stuff that you were asking for, Tribes of the North and stuff like that? I just don't think that that is going to happen if NORSCA ends up in a DLC alongside the Slaanesh faction and the High Elves, mostly because... yeah, you know, that would be a lot of work. It would be like a race pack in its own right. It'd be more like a Champions of Chaos thing. It's a massive shame that Creative Assembly don't seem to want to explore that again for some reason. Who knows? They may do in the future if this game gets a lot more support than a lot of people are thinking. But, yeah, I guess no Dolgans, no Hung, no this, no that. If they want to keep it as just NORSCA, that's perfectly fine. And again, they might not be in the next DLC, but I want to put out my ideas. It has a lot to do with what comes in actual DLC content. Whenever NORSCA does get a DLC, there'd have to be a bunch of additions to kind of finish up NORSCA because they're in such a weird spot. I don't think a lot of people want to play as NORSCA, myself included. If they get a good rework, if they get some good fixes, sure, that could fix up a lot of issues, but they need a bunch of units too. It's the issue because NORSCA never had an army book. Funny enough, NORSCA does have an official list now when it comes to Warhammer the Old World, but pretty much everything is already in-game, which is kind of funny. It does seem like there is a little bit of, like, inspiration for that army list, that's for sure. NORSCA shouldn't have been a race, and I stand by that, but if they're going to redeem it, why not, right? But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Let's start a bit of a discussion. I do apologize for the break again. Can't really help it. I have to record late at night now thanks to it. So it kind of screws up my schedule, but I have a bunch of video ideas up and running. I had a bit of writer's block too, which wasn't great, but I guess that happens when things are very quiet when it comes to Creative Assembly lately. I'm not sure what's going on over there. But, no, I've got ideas, I've got some fun videos planned. Hell, I've even been looking at doing some painting tutorials too, which might be fun. Mostly because I really need to get my armies up and running. Have a great day, everyone, and I'll see you all again very, very soon.